Go ahead. The purpose of this video is to go through and talk about how we organize the files for our transaction management. We're going to talk about what we do when they're listed and what we do when they go under contract. The first thing we do is when the home is listed, we put them in a manila file folder similar to this one. On the left-hand side is where we put all of the marketing information. On the right-hand side is where we put all of the information related to the contract. That's the listing contract, the definition of working relationship, any amendments that come in afterwards, everything like that. Also on the left-hand side, we have a checklist, so we know anytime any changes have been made to the file, as well as we have a checklist to identify that we've done everything we need to do and put it in all of the websites. All of the forms that we use for the file can be found on www.huscolorado.com. We also have a transaction sheet that we go ahead and fill out with the basic information of the property, the sellers, the title company, and the lender information. Now once the home goes under contract, we then switch it to a blue folder like this one. When you go to that huscolorado.com, there's actually a link there that can tell you where you can buy the blue folders for a more economical price than you can, say, at Office Max or Office Depot. This blue folder actually has 6 parts to it. We have some tabs that are out there on that HUS Colorado that you can go in. There's a tab A, tab B, tab C, tab D, tab E, and tab F. All of those are out there. They're called the seller tabs. There's also a different set of tabs we're going to talk about in a moment for the buyers. Now the way this works is we take everything from the manila file folder and it goes into the last 2 tabs, that tab E and tab F of the blue folder. The other tabs get filled out as we get information per the transaction. Things like getting the title work, getting the earnest money check, getting the contract. We also take, and as the deal is going on, we have what we call the flow of the deal. Well, we start out by putting the contract, then the counter, then the inspection notice, the inspection resolution, any amendments. Everything is in a format where the latest information is on top. About a week before closing, you take this and then you would divide it up into tabs A, B, C, and D, checking off which items you are filing as you go along. With regards to the tabs, the top tab is, or the top checkbox is actually what is on the very, very bottom, and then it works up from that viewpoint. When we get a contract, we also take and we leave that transaction sheet like it is. We make a copy of it and then using a blue pen fill it in and put it on tab A. That way it goes through and it stands out what is all the buyer information. This is the transaction sheet we also send to the title company. And on the bottom of the transaction sheet, we make any notices, like, for instance, maybe they wanted to have 1% towards the closing cost. Then we'll go ahead and make a note about that. If they needed to have maybe $1,200 for a new furnace per the inspection notice, we'll make a note about that so that we also are sure to double check that when we get the figures in for closing. An additional thing that we do in the file is we take a copy of the first 2 pages of the contract and we put it on one page and we mark exactly what the final price was per the counter and any date changes per the counter. So we have one sheet that anybody in the office can go look at and we know exactly what is due when, if we're called. The other good thing about using the different color folder is when we open up the file drawer, by just looking at the file drawer, we can see how many things are currently active versus how many things are actually under contract. It gives us a really good feel for that. Now, a week before closing, in addition to going in and putting everything from the flow of the deal, as we were looking at a moment ago, into the different tabs, you'll also want to go out on that huscolorado.com and download the CDA form, Commission Disbursement Authorization Form. You send this to the title, and what it does is it gives the title company the right to give you 2 checks. One check is to your office, and one check is to help you sell corporate for the franchise fee. The purpose of this is that way you don't have to worry about putting it in your bank account, reconciling, and going back and forth. It keeps everything nice and clean so that as soon as you come back from the closing, you can go on the website, close out the listing, print what's called a payment voucher, and then you're ready to go ahead and send that off to corporate with that check. Now when you do that, you're actually going to want to have 3 copies of this. One copy, you're going to actually send the check. I also send a copy of the check and the payment voucher to corporate. The next copy needs to go into the file so that you have a record. So if the real estate commission comes in, you've got a record that you did get the check. You also want to put a copy of the actual check your office received as well. And then the third one, you want to take and create a master file for corporate. This is one you'll keep by your desk, and it is going to be a copy of every payment voucher you have, along with every check that you've sent to corporate. And we also suggest putting a copy of the HUD-1 there and making any notes if there were any adjustments or anything on the HUD-1. For instance, let's say your fee was actually hypothetically $49.50, but you had to throw $1,000 in order to be able to make the deal work. Well, then actually what you collected was $39.50. So you'd want the HUD-1 there, and you'd want to make a note of that so that when you had to explain your fee, if there was an audit, you would have all of your documentation in one place. So again, the check and a copy of the check and the payment voucher goes in the mail to corporate. Another copy goes in the actual file, and then a third is in your master file. The last thing I want to mention is the seller file is blue. We make the buyer files green. The buyer files just have 4 tabs because we didn't list the home, so we don't need the additional tabs. It doesn't matter if you have them there, but if you go to the website and you print out the seller forms and the buyer tab forms, you'll see that the buyer has only A, B, C, D. They are missing E and F because there is no listing. The purpose for the multiple colors is again to be able to quickly go in and identify the different file folders. Other than that, it works very much like doing the blue folder, where you're going to put the tabs in, and then as the contract goes through and closes, you'll go ahead and file it. Now, these folders can be very expensive. What we do is every quarter, at the end of the quarter, so for instance, you have January, February, March, so on April 1, we'll take everything out of these and put them back into a manila folder in order of the ABCDs, with the A up on top and then all the tabs down below and all the file information below it, and then we file that in boxes by quarter and put it in the back storeroom, so we don't have to have quite as much storage space. Then we can go in and reuse the blue and the green folders. So again, all the forms are out on huscolorado.com. If you have any questions, just give me a buzz. Thank you.